We'll call this to order. Anybody have any questions on the minutes of last meeting, November meeting? Beth, thank you. Anybody have any questions on them? No? All those in favor of them, or can I get a motion? Second. Motion is seconded. No discussion, all those in favor? All right, and we will like to welcome guest speakers. Johnny Mary's here and
Lisa Hewitt from the Dresden Select Board.
we're going to start off with Johnny. He's the facilities maintenance director and transportation supervisor for the Wisconsin School Department. And he's open to any questions that you guys would like to ask. You guys want to chime in?
We'll open it up to public questions after we do some committee questions.
I just had a question for John. I think you've answered for me privately, but it'd be good to hear it publicly. And that is, if we did tuition our kids out, how is that transportation piece handled? Who's responsible for that?
I've seen it kind of addressed in a couple of different ways. And of course, a few short years ago, there was more competition for tuition kids. You know, schools were coming and looking for kids, and there were all kinds of different agreements. We'll come over and pick them up, and we'll split the cost, you know, each way, and so that worked out for the district. Are you talking hypotheticals right now? Or are you focused on one particular area, or?
I'm concerned that we don't understand possibly the cost that we would incur with the situation. That we'll just tuition all the kids out, which sounds okay, but then you've got to transport them. Or
Right.
do we? That's my question.
Yep. I don't know what our current enrollment is right now. I've put a message out to the drivers. I want to know how many kids are riding their bus. I think our ridership is down. I think it's like 28% of the kids in the state are riding school bus now, so that's dropping every year. We currently have 5 route buses on the road every morning. That covers all areas of town. We don't do public roads, that sort of thing. And we have a very short window where they're stopping at the building where we can drop the kids off in the morning and up until their breakfast bell. So it's like 10 or 15 minutes. So our schedule's pretty tight. So that dictates when we leave in the morning. But to get back to more of your question, we would probably have to go back to double runs, because if we're transporting our kids 20 minutes, half an hour away, we are required, state and federally, to transport K to 8 kids. We are not obligated or by law responsible to transport grades 9 to 12. However, in this particular circumstance, I suppose some will look at it as we're displacing the kids. So I think we would need to step up and come up with a plan to get them to where we would be sending them to get them educated. So given that, we'd have to send an early bus out probably to pick up the 9 to 12 kids and then get them on their way, and then make another round with another set of buses to pick up the elementary grades. The afternoon would be difficult. Just hypothetically, if Booth Bay, for instance, if they release at 2:30, our high school releases at 2:30, you know, then we've got our 9 to 12 graders down at Booth Bay. We've got to get them home. You know, how are they going to get home? So there's a lot of moving parts and logistics to putting something like that together.
That's what I was thinking, because they're not gonna come get our kids. Everyone's not gonna say, well, we'll go pick them up.
That dynamic has changed a little bit. I'm hearing that some of the schools that we were talking to a few short years ago are kind of full, or they're not really accepting kids. So yeah, there's a lot of planning that's gotta be taken care of to make it work for the kids.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot. The other thing is a vote. You know, we have a vote component right now with Wiscasset Middle High School. We make 4 trips a day back and forth to Bath for the juniors and the seniors, and, you know, is the school that we're sending our kids to, do they have an agreement with Voc? You know, what's gonna happen to our kids that have been relying on Voc, and, you know, those kids coming through, that's a pretty good stepping stone for them. So that's another, how do they get from Richmond or Booth Bay to Voc and back if students at those schools don't attend Voc? Oh, there's a lot to consider.
I'm glad it's being said, because
Yeah.
in talking to people in the community, I don't think they understand that there's other pieces to it, not just send the kids.
Oh, no,
Like,
there's,
I get
yeah.
it, man.
yeah, there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. I've started making some notes, but, until we have a good idea of maybe destination, it's gonna be hard to come up with an estimate for something like that.
Well, the physical plant, as far as if we did tuition out, what would happen with K-8, and is there room in one school versus the other one?
I brought a drawing at the high school.
Mhm.
Because I didn't know if a lot of the folks here really knew the size of the high school or the layout. So I'll pass them that way. Pass them that way. This is it's a layout of the Wiscasset Middle High School. It's 72,500 square feet, and the current elementary school where the pre-K to 5 is located is around 53,000. So you get 20,000 more square feet at the high school than you do at the elementary school. The needs are a little different with the lower grades, and primarily talking about bathrooms, that sort of thing. There would need to be some consideration there. Space-wise, I don't think it would be a problem. We have some big rooms in high school, as big, if not bigger than down at the elementary school. So the logistical part of moving the kids around, that type of thing, the service areas, the cafeteria, the gym, that type of thing, I think we could, you know, accommodate really well. We've got a nice library up here, bigger than the one we have now, that could be utilized for a lot of other things than just books.
So what kind of, changes do you see needing to happen? You mentioned bathrooms, but what are the kind of changes?
Yeah, whatever wing the little kids go in. If you're looking at the drawing like this is the wing off to the right as you're driving in the driveway past the tennis court. And that's got the most rooms in it. And it's closest to the office, it's closest to the cafeteria, so I would think that would probably be the first consideration, to put in the little kids. And I'm just,
There's no sewer lines down there though, so.
we'd have to
We've
add.
talked about that.
Yeah, we'd have to add sewer. Yeah,
It's a big-
What is the stipulation with that, as far as bathrooms for the lower grades?
For the lower grades, there is a square footage requirement. This is for new school, but, there is a square footage requirement. There is a number of bathrooms that needs to be within the facilities for the lower grades. I can research that a little bit and get back to you folks with
But
it.
that's a cost.
Pre-K and K.
Could be a cost, yeah.
Cause we're assuming,
Yeah, pre-K and K.
so we would need more likely then.
Yeah,
And now beyond that, as far as the needs for, recess and all of that, what does that look like? Because we would need structures and we would need fenced in areas. and
Well, you
all-
have to move the playground. from
Yeah,
the school.
yeah, that's a pretty big administrative component there where they'll have to put their heads together and.
Yeah, and then they'd have to go do some
Yeah,
fencing.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
you know, it's not just moving desks up over there.
Right, it's.
I can see a fence probably going around the whole back of the building
Yeah.
Okay.
for containment, yeah.
And what kind of cost are we looking at for that? Is that something that you can look into for us?
Yeah, I can look at that.
Okay,
Mhm.
because I know that there are certain standards that would need to be
Right.
met for that,
Right.
so.
Mhm.
Right,
Any playground has to be enclosed.
yes,
If we went to an option where we were the receiving school, like if we went for the regional option and we were the high school.
Mhm.
Is there room to either add to the high school grades in the current middle high school or move some grades back down to primary school, or, I mean, what's the room there, I guess? if we were the Receiving.
I'm trying to think of how many kids we get down at the elementary school.
We've got 367 district-wide and 134 are in the middle high school, or in 9 to 12 in the middle high school, and probably about 106 to 8. So, so that includes our tuition students, but if we had, so that's 230 now. I know the building used to have.
When I came here in '98, there were 427 kids in the high school.
Yeah, and there's still.
But I know
Oh, yeah.
I've got rules though with, right, don't you have to separate kids like 6?
Well, you can
and
keep your middle
12.
school in the old wing, and in the high school itself, you could probably add another 109 to 12 graders in that space.
While still keeping the 6
She's
through
talking
8.
about elementary, yeah.
No, you're talking about if we expanded, kept it a 6 to 12 building, how many high school?
I'm saying either option, so
Yeah.
if we wanted to just make it high school again, is there room to have 6 through 8 back down at the primary school?
No.
No, so
No,
it'd have to be,
6 to 8 has to stay there, and honestly, if we expand our pre-K, I could even foresee, needing space. We need space at the other building, it's tight.
at the
Every-
primary school,
Yes,
Well,
okay, but either way, we,
requirements are different, so it makes it harder.
there's a lot of space there, it's not, I understand it, the current principal thinks that it could be planned differently. Because I was thinking like, well, maybe we should move 5th grade over to the middle school, but, so we could free up space, but. So, you know. Just a consideration. I don't want to scare anyone by saying, we're talking about moving 5th grade, we're not. But if you were, you know, it's tight at the elementary school right now.
but there would be room at the high school
Mm-hmm.
currently for
Yeah.
more high schoolers.
Yeah, and more middle schoolers.
There's a lot of room at the elementary school, but I think the way we're using the building, the way we need to, currently, that it's using up a lot of space.
What's the capacity at the high school? How many kids can you legally fit?
Well, if you stay to high school, with junior high,
Yeah, 4:30.
4:30.
and that would be combined with junior high, high
And
school.
we're at 3:30 now, she'll get an extra 100 students.
Yeah.
Wait, 4:30 first,
For
6 through 12?
6 through 12,
Okay,
For bodies in the building.
yes, okay.
yeah, we're not talking just high school.
It may even be a little more now because we don't have the tech area and the automotive area. We've got 4 or 5 classrooms down through there now, so
Mhm.
Now, is
it
that
might be in
just,
the middle 400s.
is that just students or does that consider admin and teachers as well?
Students.
Just
Students.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, so current 6 through 12 is about 230, is that correct?
Mhm.
134 plus 100, and then you're saying capacity is at least 430, so
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
for 200 more.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Not 100 more.
I'd gladly research anything you folks need me to do, so. Just reach out to me, email, call me.
Well, from our perspective, because we're on a subcommittee of
Yep.
homes in the school, so maybe we could have a sit-down meeting, the 3 of us, with you for a while.
Sure. Sure.
Come with a list of questions. and
Yep.
Wait for you to get back to us, that way you get it all at once and.
Yep.
You know, be a little more efficient for you.
Yeah, we'd gladly do a tour as well. You know, sometimes seeing means a lot.
Absolutely.
I would love it if you guys would take a tour
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd
of
be
both
great.
of our facilities so that you know exactly what we're looking at. That would be really terrific.
Can we do that?
Times.
Yeah, can we do that?
It's changed a lot though.
Well, I know, but still, the size of the.
I missed the last two.
All these
Like you said,
classrooms.
those areas, in the upper level with tech use, full tech use, and all that, those are huge rooms. And so we repurposed relatively.
Well, they're
easily.
classrooms now.
Doug,
They're not.
we got,
Yeah, I know.
guys, we gotta make sure you are
Yep.
on recording and they can't hear the side conversations,
Speak
like,
up.
it's hard to hear.
Just ignore the sidebar.
Roy just got another question.
I just wanna add one thing, John, my name's Willard Morgan, I just wanna thank you, because I've heard a few times reference to the work you've done over a long period of time to take care of the facility.
Thank you.
And just having been in charge of a facility at a time, and how deferred maintenance can limit your choices going forward.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanna call out that it's unusual to hear a lot of agreement on something like good care of facility, so I just wanna thank you
Thank
for
you.
that over a long
Thank
period of
you.
time.
My experience has been that cost deferment for maintenance is the most pound-foolish way to do anything. Say
Speaking of,
10 cents today and it costs you $3 tomorrow.
speaking of that kind of thing, what kind of shape are the buildings in terms of, particularly the high school? I'm thinking in terms of, are we looking at a lot of major things we're gonna need to do in the next 10 years?
I let the board know last Tuesday night at our board meeting that we have some significant ticket items coming up. Heating plants at both of the buildings they're getting old. And a good, for instance, is I've got a $3,700 boiler burner motor coming that has to have a balanced fan attached to it. And it's just, the costs have gone through the roof. We're doing fairly well with our roofing, catching up with our roofing. We've replaced some pretty significantly sized EPDM roofing, rubber roofing over the last couple of years. We talked about repointing some brick. The face of the gym at the high school needs to be ground out and remortared and that kind of thing. It's just old. It's 1961 vintage. We've done a lot of work in the last 15 years removing asbestos floor tiles. So we've been doing a lot. Now it's the big heavy infrastructure stuff that is just getting old. And we need to come up with a different technology. So I think, to answer your question, I think our heating, HVAC, superintendent wants to put cooling in the buildings, and we do need to. Domestic water, all of that stuff needs to be upgraded.
Okay.
It's gonna be a challenge. The site's up there, the site at the high school is 12 acres, but it's a tough, tight site, and doing any work up there is gonna be a challenge on the outside.
I do wanna say, just to say it, that, the last time that I went up, I drove in, and the parking lot is now repaved, it's all marked out right. And the Boosters put, banners on each of the poles going in, woven. It's amazing how little touches can make a big difference. I had a lot of kids that day that I spoke with that said it just looked really good to them, and they felt good about coming to the building. So I think, yes, we probably do have a lot of behind the scenes stuff that has to happen, but I think even the things like that, those cosmetic changes, help kids and the community feel better about the school.
Yeah, we're putting a gym project together to redo the floor and get rid of the used bleachers that were installed in 1961. So we're looking to make some pretty good gains there. We did a lot during the 2018. We finished an energy reduction project in 2018. It's got all new LED lighting, replaced a bunch of windows. Did a lot of building envelope work to tighten the building up a little bit, put controls on the heaters and that kind of thing. So we've been trying to hit it where it's needed to save money.
Thank you
And
for doing that.
Yeah.
It's made a
we've
difference.
saved 35% probably on our electric bill just by what we've done so far.
What about the windows?
The windows, we replaced all of the windows on the two-story behind the gym at the high school. The windows along here, they have insulated panels, and then thermopane glass, but those were done probably 15, 20 years ago, and they're still in good shape, so.
Are there any questions from the public? Any further questions from the committee?
When can we set up a tour? Should we take a
Yeah.
shot in the dark tonight and just say we're gonna do it?
I would say after the new year.
Yeah.
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 You think?
Yeah.
Anybody free on December 25th?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you wanna email me, I'll go to the superintendent with any questions after the night. I'd be glad to research anything you need me to do.
Thank you so much for this.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Well, if nobody else, thank you.
What
for
else
coming.
did you bring that we didn't ask the question?
I brought some statistics on new building, because I didn't know what you were gonna ask tonight. I did put a really quick, building asset sheet together. It gives a
Okay.
description of the property and what it includes, and,
Question.
it's what I have attached to the, documentation that I provide for when we have to be recertified and that type of thing, so.
Would it be possible for you to send us that electronically?
Yep.
Or at least one of us,
Yep.
just for our records, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Are they all in great shape?
We have been fortunate enough to add 4 buses to the fleet in the last 5 years. We're switching over to gas. We find the maintenance is cheaper. The mileage is maybe 2 miles per gallon off from a diesel bus. When we've gotten rid of all of the air pollution controls problems that diesel buses have nowadays, and they're so expensive to maintain, so.
Oh, the cost difference in
Yeah.
fuel too.
Yeah. So, yeah, we've been able to cut down on our maintenance costs and the fleet's in decent shape. We have got a full-time mechanic, so we're able to get extended years on it.
And we generate revenue with our mechanic.
Yep.
We work on.
I was gonna say he's working for the RSU and the.
And, Great Salt Bay, yep.
Johnny, thank you.
You're very
Thank
welcome. You're welcome.
So thank you to Lisa Hewitt for coming. She's very familiar with Dresden's, exploratory committee. Leah was unable to join, but Lisa volunteered to come and at least answer some initial questions. And so I asked her if she could just talk a little bit about their process and how they came up with some of the questions they wanted to answer and how they came up with their report. So I'll turn it over to her.
All right. Thank you. So the committee has been 2 years in doing research. The original charter from the select board was nothing but research and options to give to the public. So we did deep dives. The committee was great. They did deep dives into the main government website under education, and they extracted some facts and how it dealt with Dresden and the surrounding communities and what other communities had to offer, the student to teacher ratios, the graduation rate. So just a host of information that we went through. And then we went to the 279 form, which the state puts together, which is extremely complicated. And if anybody can figure out that formula, please share it. We can't, and I don't think the state can either, but we pulled some information from that as well. They gave percentages and how much the state paid to each of the schools. Then we interviewed superintendents from each of the districts. We went to Gardner, we went to RSU2 ourselves, we came to Wiscasset. We talked to Booth Bay, and we just wanted to kind of put our feelers out for what are you doing for your students? What worries do you have? Are you losing students? Are you gaining students? How do the teachers feel? And so it was basically just interviewing and then collecting the facts from all the different reports we looked at. And then we actually put a list of questions the committee came up with. And I think there were a little over 100 that we wanted the superintendents to answer, because they seemed to be very pleased with answering any questions we had. We did narrow it down. I think we had like 55, and none of them answered the questions. They all said they were too busy, or they would give it to the principal. So it just kind of was a little bit of a light bulb into us saying, okay, you're helpful, but you don't really want to go out of the way, the extra way for some of the questions that we asked. And they weren't easy questions. I mean, some of them were pretty complicated and you had to give some thought to it. You had to research it with your teachers and things like that. Because we want to know what each school is doing. How are the schools handling the capacity? And are they looking to expand? Are they looking to bring in more students? Can they take on resident students? And then it was a matter past that point of doing a presentation. I think you got that, Sarah, the presentation that we gave to the select board and the town, with what our options were. And we asked that we be rechartered, they asked that the select board recharter and start a new committee to actually do the deeper diving into the different options. And they were, do we stay with RSU 2? Do we split and have the elementary school remain and tuition out our high school students? Do we tuition out all our students and let RSU 2 handle Dresden Elementary School? It's their problem, not ours. And so the charter was drafted. It's 2.5 pages long on exactly what the committee is to be looking for. And so we have, because of the work we had done in those 2 years, we've had a lot of that information. We can only gather up to FY24. And now we're moving forward with FY25. We have a very good representative from the school board that's helping us do that research. So that's where we're at now. We just received the new charter. It was in October. The board, the committee has not been able to bring back a committee yet because of everybody's schedule. But the one thing I, as a select board, wanted was, I want the same people. They know this. They've done all this research. So I think it's important to keep continuity. We just need to ask to see if they want to stay. And they're all very nervous about the charter because it's a big assignment. We've asked for 4 years, got a lot of pushback, but it was, you don't know what you're asking this committee to do. And it's going to take a long time. And it probably will be done before 4 years, but don't cut them off at the knees. Give them opportunity to do the work they need to do.
So the second version is a much bigger version of the first presentation, basically?
Yes, this is where the committee presented a lot of facts to the town. It was a little overwhelming because we as a select board asked them to really condense it. Don't overload them because they're just gonna get confused and they're not gonna know what's even going on. So we made a very short presentation. Some of the facts we found, the different schools, we compared RSU 2 with the different other areas, where they stood, where other schools stood. There were pros and cons, but there was never a recommendation that was given. It was very clear. The charter was, you do not give recommendations, you only present facts. And what are our options? And now it's gonna be, okay, we're gonna research every one of those options. And we're gonna look into the transportation, what's the graduation level, what are the students, their main courses and teacher ratio. And so it's now into that really true deep dive where we're gonna be bringing up a lot of facts that we've already gathered, but it's gonna be presentable to the town. So, and that in itself is gonna take quite a bit of work and putting a PowerPoint presentation to keep it very.
Is there any public process, like public comment or surveys or anything like that in the first one, or will be in the second one, do you think?
Absolutely. The public is gonna be extremely engaged on this one. All the meetings were public. Very few people ever attended. I'm sure you get the same thing here with Steph. It's a big town and you just don't get a lot of people that show an interest until it's near the end or they hear something negative. But yes, we have surveys that we'll be doing. We had a survey we did send out. That's why the committee was recharged to continue down the path it was going. Past that, we can only hope that the information gets out that we're giving. I mean, there's the communicator that we have. We do the electronic board. We post it at the takeout. I mean, and you give it to the school and it's like, what do we have to do to bring you in? So you can ask those difficult questions. What do you want to see? Basically is what the committee's interested in, is what does the public want? At the end of the meeting that we had for this previous committee was, we do want to see you continue. That was the consensus, and we probably had 30 people at the public hearing. But out of those 30, it was like, I'd like to see the facts, I'd like to see, you know, where it would take us. We're paying a lot, I mean, everybody knows that. Our taxes, our mill rate is up, I mean, because we have school costs, and it goes up and up and up, and they're not hurting. So we do have to decide, you know, whether we wanna join another, you know, an SAD or an RSU or whatever, or do we wanna branch out on our own, keep our school, tuition our kids out? It's gonna be what's best for the taxpayers from a select board's point of view. I want what the town wants. There's a lot of feelings and a lot of emotion in this. So we have to be very, very careful with that. Temper it.
And is part of the new charter to come up with a recommendation, or is it still?
It's to give the facts and what's the best for the town. So there will be a quasi recommendation. They don't want to be firm on that recommendation because it's not the committee's decision, it's the town's decision. So it would be a matter of, if we listed this in order, this is what it would look like. And then it would have many public meetings. And I'm more than welcome, I can share that charter with you if you would like it.
Because we are not charged with a recommendation.
Yeah.
We are the first version of their.
Yeah.
We're just to find facts and present it to us well.
Just out of curiosity, I'd like to ask, do you have a good turnout for like when the school budget's voted on? No, each year? Because one of the things that happened here that was quite impressive was that, cause I keep saying, we need a survey, see how the townspeople feel, let's find out what people wanna do, which is great, but not a lot of people will answer those. Right. But what happened to us is we went into the gym and I didn't know what was gonna happen. But it was an overwhelming 2/3 of the people, even 3/4 of the people that showed up voted for the school budget, which was high. And we knew our mill rate had gone up. And I thought, we're a democracy. We're looking for a vote. Why wouldn't that suffice to tell us this community supports our schools? What are we gonna do about it? We gotta make our schools better, number one. But I do believe we have a community in Wiscasset that supports our schools and having our schools here. We just need to get it right. And see if we can get, students from other towns to come here and that kind of thing for the student count. But I feel personally, and I've been here a while, working in the schools for many years, that I have never, in all my experience of 35 years in the school system, seen a better support of our schools staying open and being open with the money that we spent. We didn't spend just a little bit of money. That was a big budget. But out of the people that came, the gym was full. I was there. It was amazing. Most school budget meetings or school votes on the budget, you might get 20 people. We don't get that kind of turnout. So I think we've got to listen too. We can't forget about that. We can't just say, you know what? So what if 3/4 of the people there voted? It was amazing.
That's
I
right.
got goosebumps.
I
So
don't think
that's-
anybody's down.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying, I myself kept saying, I want to do a survey and see what the people, I saw that in that, you see what I'm saying? That was just a couple months ago.
But I will say, in the comprehensive plan, it was an overwhelming, yes, we want to look into regionalization.
No, that's fine. But
So,
I'm saying we do have the support we need. I feel
Yeah.
good about this. Yeah.
and I'm partially saying that only because I don't, some people have given me the impression that they think this committee is biased only to keep doing the status quo, and I just want to be very clear that we all have personal opinions, but as a committee, we are looking into all the options. I just want to say that for the record, because sometimes if you just read headlines or that kind of thing, it may look like we're swayed, but I just.
We're not.
And I totally agree with that, and
Yeah.
that is an issue you're gonna face going forward throughout all the research you do, because people are gonna think the committee is against certain things, and they're not, people don't understand you're looking at things holistically, and then you're gonna come out with facts. We did run into that, we had a
Yes.
lot of emotion that came out of some of our meetings, a lot.
Well, and that's part of why we have subcommittees, because people kind of chose what they were interested in, so, I mean,
And just, I'm sorry, just for clarification, we're not recommending we, like, for instance, withdraw from RSU two, or we stay with RSU two.
Mhm.
We're presenting the facts with the dollars that attach to it.
Yeah, the pros and cons of
Exactly,
staying or leaving,
right,
even the school open or closing,
correct,
You're just presenting facts.
right. And they'll know what the three options are.
I think it's really important that you do due diligence when you're looking at your budget. You know, we all do that in our own homes. So we, you know, we have to, like myself, we've gotten older, we don't have the same income that we have. We can't support the same system that we've enjoyed perhaps in the past. So it's really up to us to look at all aspects, you know, whatever it might be, to make sense of everything. Because again, of course, emotions play into everything. There's no question about that. We all have allegiance to various things, but we also have to come back to be responsible as well.
The other thing is, there are so many schools right now in Maine that are dealing with exactly what we're dealing with. Small schools in Maine are struggling right now, small high schools. And in talking with people, I just feel like we're so lucky to be able to have a committee that people will come together and try to figure out what we can do. And I don't know well everybody on this committee, but I think that we're all here with the same thing in mind. We want what's best for the kids. It's not about getting our way or getting what we think. It's what's best for the kids in our community, so.
Yeah, can you just, I think you said it in part, but can you restate what the top, say, 3 drivers were for the start of your process in town? Like what instigated the study? If you were to, you know, really boil it down.
Yeah, the committee was formed, actually, I think it was like 4 years ago. That was the first committee. And they got to the point of withdrawing. They kind of overstepped a lot of steps to the point of withdrawing. This committee that we have currently took that because the town voted it down. It was just, it was not, be careful with what I say. I don't think they did the due diligence they should have done the first time around.
So you mean the town voted down the motion to withdraw?
Right, and to fund the piece that the state requires, you're getting an attorney, you're having to move forward with the withdrawal. There were people on that committee that still felt that they needed to have a committee to look at all these options, but it wasn't handled the way probably it could have been handled better. So that committee formed, they came to the select board and said, hey, look, we understand we've made some mistakes in the past, however, we want to form this new committee. We're gonna do the research. We want to present you facts. We just don't want to come to you and say, this is what we think we should do. And so that's how it really started. The select board pondered it and said, okay, you know, we know there's interest out there with the public that wants to see what our options are, so move forward.
So then, could I just ask, so the previous effort that led to the recommendation motion to withdraw, what instigated that?
I was not on the select board at the time, and I was barely on the committee. I think I attended like 3 meetings. I can't really answer that. I didn't see as a citizen of Dresden a lot of communication. And when I went to vote for that money, I was stunned that it was even an article on the warrant. And I was active in the town, so I just think it was just not communicated well.
So that just, I mean, so was it dissatisfaction with the educational option or the cost or yes, all the above, or you're not sure?
I don't know what work they did, what led them to wanting to withdraw. I can't answer that question.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
The charter.
Oh.
Great.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions for Lisa? Public? Yes,
Kim, sorry, Kim, do you mind coming up to the table, just for the owl?
I just want to be clear,
in terms of your charter and what it is that you really are communicating. I understand that you are looking at financial aspects. But is that the bottom line? How are you looking at the quality of education that the kids are receiving? And what those high school kids in particular, what's available to them? As our schools get smaller and smaller, they do tend to have somewhat less opportunities.
So I'll just quickly run through what our criteria is, what the select board has assigned this committee to do. So it's the total operational costs, capital costs, transportation, special ed, administrative, what the cost is per student, long-term financial implication, future funding needs, return on investment, and then the community impact, economic and social costs. And then we look at the education quality. We have criteria set for them on that, which is the academic performance, the curriculum quality, teacher qualifications, student support services, class size and student teacher ratio, school environment, community and parental involvement, and post-graduation outcomes. So there's a host of things that this committee has been assigned that they have to research.
This is the new
This
charter,
is the new charter.
and I'm hoping you'll pass one of those along to me.
Sure.
Okay.
Would you mind sending me an electronic?
Absolutely. I think I'm not sure. Do you have access to our Google Docs now?
No, I
Okay,
don't.
you still don't. Okay, I'll send it to you electronically.
I can send this around.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Pretty intense.
Yes, it is.
Well,
That's what we said 4 years.
I have one other question. Has there been any discussion about hiring any professional consulting or experts to do any of this work?
Not yet. That isn't meaning it's out of the question, but certainly we'd have to budget that in next year's fiscal budget, because there is none now.
In what area do you think you would seek expert help? In other words, what are some things that you haven't been able to do and you would like to be able to do?
We probably have to do, I mean, capital costs is a big thing.
Yeah.
You know, we know the state of what the elementary school's like, excuse me. And then it would be also probably the quality of education. Sometimes I think people get very emotional when it comes to that. So I think it would be better to third party handle things like that. But I don't know if that would be the case or not. Yeah, we have one teacher on the committee that was on the committee. We're hoping she'll re-up this time. So it's a pretty diverse committee.
Good question. Thank you. I wondered that same thing and wondered if it was. I just want to spend money, right? I don't like the expert.
Yeah, I'm a financial nutcase when it comes to spending money.
Right.
So,
I've had to temper my
yeah.
anticipation. Haven't I?
Yes.
Does anybody else have anything? Lisa, thank you very much.
Well, thank you
Thank you
for
so
the
much.
opportunity, and please reach out if there's anything we can do or share, or we've got a lot of information out there. I mean, it might not pertain to Wiscasset, but certainly we could give you the guidance of where you can go look.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. If you think of something that we need to know, you know.
Yeah. I'd like to get a report from our subcommittees. Jason's not here, Terry and Deb. You guys have anything else that you'd like?
We have been adding to our list of 10. I don't know if you remember these. Most people don't, but I have. I will read those and then I'll do this. All right. And this is the importance of high schools and also reasons to maintain where we are. Thank you, Lisa. The first is we use it to educate our children and to maintain local control of the process. That is number one. And with that, I went back to look at when the first elementary school or the first school was, built here. And what I found was far more important than that was, we made several petitions to the state to be incorporated, to be recognized as a town. Have you read all of that? This is fascinating history right here in River City. Come to find out that we needed to show that, we have provided for a pastor and have provided for a schoolmaster. Those were the two characteristics that they thought that shows us that you're serious about being a town. So this town was founded with that in mind, and that education was one of the two most important things we could do. And I think that we've got a long history and we ought to take a look at it and appreciate it. All right. These are self-evident things. Our schools already exist and they've been well maintained. We've heard that. The school is the largest employer in town and the ripple effects of closure are very hard to assess. Possible savings aren't guaranteed and are not enough to warrant closure. A town with no high school is not attractive to move to. Subcontracting out our responsibilities is not a good example for our children. Our teacher to student ratio is excellent. Once an important institution in the town is removed, it's very hard to replace it. Closure would negatively affect the Wiscasset Community Center. Pre-K through 12, continuity is important for families and student success. As a former teacher, that vertical learning, knowing who is coming up in the next class, and every class is different. That was critical in all the schools. The vertical cooperation between schools and teachers. So some of this, a high school builds relationships within the community, provides a sense of community pride, connection, and stability that makes a neighborhood feel like a home. It's what makes us feel like a community. One of the things I think we need to do is ask the high school students what they think is important in keeping the high school or moving. You know, yes, we're the status quo people, but we're not just looking only at the pros and cons of that, the status quo. Keeping it.
No, I think what we need is, we need to have the facts that go along with those statements.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, bringing the high school brings performing arts into the community, band, choir, orchestra, dance, art, plays, and concerts. We have to know our students' skills and abilities with sports, which is another important thing in identifying what our students are doing and how well they do, how well they perform. It's small enough to take advantage of the place-based learning. See, some of this I'm getting from the statements over here, such as going on board to Virginia and visiting the port in Edgecombe. Our high school is small enough and nimble enough to be able to do that. And again, this is to really reiterate, schools are managed by the local elected school committee and under local control. Yes, I will.
Yes.
Basically, we just need to break down how you can back up statements
Okay,
with facts. And
well,
what are we actually providing for students for?
And writing, you know, so we can take it home, look at it, then ask questions.
Cause what, like, to be blunt, without adding what he's saying, those are just opinions right now. See what,
it's,
like,
well,
that's what people who are not in favor of it will say. So like, for example, you say the student teacher ratio is excellent, what does that mean? Why is it
Right.
excellent and what is it?
Like what private schools use for student to teacher ratio, so that people
Yeah.
pay a lot of money for them to
Right.
go. and
Or,
study.
or whatever reasoning the three of you think.
Right,
What is
what are
excellent?
the state recommendations?
Right.
What are accreditation recommendations for student to staff ratio? All those kind of things can play into your report. I would look at what different accreditation groups look at for those kinds of ratios, because that will back up what you're talking about.
And also to go along with the comparison with the area schools.
well, I was
That
listening
show,
to the,
Yeah.
like Lisa just.
yeah,
Yeah.
coming to, just providing data. We could do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes, when you look at the data, you don't know what you're looking at.
No,
And also, these statements are not just out of thin air. This is from people who, from the newspaper, from different, leaders in the community, I'll say that, opinions about our school, which is important.
oh, it is important,
Yes,
but it's still. needs-
but their opinions.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yes, and I will go find data about it.
Yeah, the thing that I would add is that what we should be concerned with foremost is that, are we educating our kids so that they can leave the high school, go to a competitive college on any level and compete? And I will say I had lunch with three delightful seniors that just graduated last year. And they were telling me how they were doing. And one of them had multiple majors that they're doing. And someone at the town community center said, I can't believe you, where'd you go to school? And they said Wiscasset High School. And I can't believe you can do what you're doing coming from Wiscasset. We need to change that because our kids need to be getting what they need to be able to be competitive in the world. I don't care if it's in a boat program or if it's in a college or whatever it's in.
I think it's
We
very
have to,
similar to
yeah.
what Lisa just said. You have to be able to show, what your graduation rate is, what they're able to
Yeah.
do when they do come out of Wisconsin High School.
That's what I was
Yeah,
just gonna
that's
say, what I
education.
would like to do, which I would like to do, and which I may do. I always bring things on myself. I would like to talk with and survey our kids that have graduated in the last 3 years and say, where are you? What did you not get from Wiscasset that you should have? Because I certainly don't want our kids graduating thinking, if I went here or there, I would have been able to take this. That's not the issue right now, but I want to make sure that we have a good picture of that. So that's what I want to do personally.
Does guidance keep track of placement after high school? So that might be a great place for you to get information as
Yes.
well, is
Yeah.
where are these
Where are
kids
they?
tracking to?
Yeah.
And if guidance is keeping that kind of
I think that would
information
be,
and report,
that would be a
something.
great
Yeah.
knowledge to
But it would
have.
be good to also ask the question of what do you wish you had had, or
Yes,
do you feel like you missed something? Or, and the opposite, if you feel like you were prepared, why?
Yes, yes.
And you feel like you should have paid more attention.
That could be too.
There's that too.
But I think
But it's a
my-
big question for me, because when my kids went through, they had the opportunity to do everything and anything. I just want to make sure that we go forward with our kids having that same opportunity. From my lunch date, I feel confident they are right now, but I want to hear from a lot of kids about it, like your kids. You know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna start talking to people.
No, and I think that's a good idea. Kim,
Yeah, I just wanna add. I realize you probably have, contacts for those students who may have gone on to college, but don't forget all those other students.
I mentioned the whole other.
Great,
No,
oh, terrific,
Yeah.
that would be wonderful.
no, it'd have to be a broad.
sure, definitely.
Yeah.
You could probably reach most of them on Facebook.
Yes, I could. I'm probably friends with most of them on
That's
Facebook.
what I mean.
No, I just thought of this. That's the main issue.
But I'm kind of thinking, and others can tell me if they disagree, but since yours is status quo slash expansion, I feel like it might make sense, in addition to your list that you're gonna put some data behind, it would be good to have some of the efforts, like I know that Kim has done with recruitment and like putting some of that together to show, okay, here's some of the highlights of what we're doing. And here's what we're also doing for the expansion piece. Cause part of this is just getting all this down for information so that people are aware, okay, this is what we're already doing. This is what it currently looks like.
And I feel that our subcommittee basically is gonna deal with numbers. The social impact will have to be decided and discussed by other people,
Yeah,
which is strictly numbers.
yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. I mean, you mentioned a couple things that I know there are studies about in terms of community impact. I mean, there's data behind that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We just need to be careful to. I personally think we need to be careful about backing up all of these things,
Yeah.
because we are supposed to be putting forward
Yeah.
the options for people to decide.
Yes, it's hard to read this list aloud, because yes, they are opinions, but the fact is, they're important.
Yeah, but
They
that,
are important to be able to substantiate, because there's a lot of people who think these things.
we was the committee is formed
Yes,
to present this stuff to the selection. What they do with it is their business. We're just doing the legwork for them.
Mhm.
So opinions,
Yeah,
that happens during the select board discussions. But you have to present the facts to the select board.
I know.
and I don't mean any of it's not important, and I don't necessarily disagree on your list, but.
I think it's a good idea to reach out to the kids. I
I'm
think it's a
gonna-
good idea to
I'm
reach
gonna
out to the
see
parents.
I'm saying that's not a bad idea. That's,
Because I wanna know,
I think it's
to be
a good
honest
idea
with
to
all of
reach
you.
out to
I
them.
mean, you can even do like a 4-question Google form.
Yes, I know
Say,
how to
hey,
do
can you
that,
fill this out?
yes. Because I wanna know, because for me, the fact that I wanted to be on this committee is because I'm really concerned that our kids get the education they need.
Yeah.
And I think we need to make sure they have.
well, I think everybody on this board, that's their ultimate. You
I don't know, but I.
What's the best education the kids can get? Gotta keep in mind, we have taxpayers that have to pay the bill.
But they'll pay the bills if they see the
They'll
result
pay
of
the
their.
bill, well, yes, full point.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Regional, Beth, Willard and Pat?
Yeah, so, building on what I think was presented last week, which was starting to pull numbers about, area enrollment in neighboring schools. We're continuing down that track. I think, it'll be interesting to see where the overlap is with your work, but, we're really looking at districts neighboring and then maybe the next, and just try to get an understanding of enrollment, especially current high school enrollment. And also look at, one thing that we've been doing recently is looking at the geographic areas of, obviously, of different units and how those correlate. Also just an interesting, set of information, looking over the last 10 years, schools within, several districts that are 500 to 800 students are generally stable. They're either down less than 10%. This would be the high schools, down less than 10% or up as much as 10%. It's the smaller schools where, those under 250, where enrollment has declined by more than 10%. So that may, that's not necessarily news to folks, but just to look at the data, it sort of reinforces the challenge of being a small school. At the high school level, not that it's all bad, but it's just a challenge. So, one other thing just to think about that is, again, maybe stating the obvious, those schools that are 500 or more, typically, they're pretty much all along the Route 1 corridor, going east to west, and they either serve larger population centers or they serve a north to south population center, but the Route 1 corridor is a logical area to gather students. It's where the population centers are a little larger and where there are services such as municipal water and sewer. So there's some just geographic rationale to where schools tend to be located for the high school level in our general region. And then I think the other thing we're starting to look at is this various information about projections for demographics in our area. So
I was just gonna ask you about that. I had written myself a little note.
yeah, and it's a volatile time, and there's different studies out there. But, one of, the recent one done by the Lincoln County Regional Planning Association, the Housing Needs Assessment. I think that's a pretty interesting and relevant one. It's different from the state demographic outlook 2020 to 2030 in terms of what it's concluding. And it's a more nuanced view because depending how you look at the current trend, we know that in recent years, Lincoln County has, and our area has grown in population, but the percentage of school age population has declined. However, if you look at the unmet potential for growth in jobs, there are many jobs that currently can't be filled because there's not housing. And the projection for job growth within this area is up, and a lot of those jobs would be professionals who may likely have families in different sectors. So there's a big need for housing. So we're in an interesting time where it's a little unclear what the demographics are going to be. Also, obviously, the coastal, the percentage of housing along the direct coast is becoming more and more seasonal. So you have fewer resident families on the coast, but so that's challenging for schools like the booth-based system. So anyhow, these are just the kind of things that we're starting to look at, and I think the other thing that I'm interested in is that our direct neighboring high schools are, as far as I understand, and I think it'd be helpful to talk to the superintendent, head of school, Morse and Lincoln. But as far as I understand, they are relatively close to capacity, and the total student count for Booth Bay and Wiscasset is well more than what those schools could absorb, and they have no plans, as far as I know, to add. And so there's something about Wiscasset and Booth Bay. There's a whole number of students who have to be served, and they have to be served well. And it's just an interesting, and then you got Dresden too and other areas. So back to the numbers, there are several hundred, between 300 and 400 high school students in the Wiscasset general area that have to be served and have to be served well. And so that sort of begs the question for our two, all three committees, but.
Because there's social costs in whatever we do.
Yeah, but I think it's important to be clear what the numbers are. There's a lot of, there's a lot of our kids who have to be served well. So I think getting really clear on that versus a general idea of, oh, this could happen or this could happen. How many kids are there in a geographic area that all need to be served, and what's a way to do that?
And what do those
efficiently?
demographics look like as time goes on? Because we were only talking about what kids you're serving right now, but what does that look like with what you have at these younger level schools coming up? Are we going to go up numbers wise again? And
Well, as a town, we may not, but if we partner with Dresden and Booth Bay, then we will.
Right.
And how do we accommodate that in conjunction with them?
But also just put on the table, just the assumption that school age population will decline forever. I just want to challenge that because.
Well, it won't forever, because if the housing issue is resolved, then you'll have an influx of people.
Yeah, and that
then we have
is
to
most likely gonna happen along the Route 1 corridor within a certain distance, because that's where the housing's gonna be cheapest to build.
Because not all of the local schools are losing. Bristol had to add on because they're growing at a pace that they just can't sustain it.
So again, it's hard to look into the future, but I think I want us to be willing to gather multiple sources of information that have right now, they point to different future trajectories. So there's what's in the schools right now, there's what the population study said, there's what some of the workforce studies are saying, and I think we may have to present multiple sources of projections that may not all agree, and then have to talk about that.
And there are housing, projects going on. I'm on the planning board. We just okayed, up by Oak Ridge West, a housing development to go in there. So we are trying to get more housing available. And I think you're right. I think it's gonna.
I think it just has to be a
It has to be.
consideration, because there's a narrative
They're
that
gonna
we're
have
just
to
gonna
fill all
shrink and shrink. That may happen, but I'm not sure that that's the only future. So that's some of the information. The other thing that we'll just want to ask him, because of the changing combinations of students, we're just gonna need help pulling out the last 10 years of 9 through 12, because the state data doesn't do that, so I'm sorry, but we'll have to get a little help on that. And then also I'd love to just ask you about what regionalization means. And maybe that's for the district, because there's like shared service agreements that through, which I believe you research, and then there's the actual, so there's different ways to regionalize. And I think just even breaking down that term a little bit more, and I did some research, but I'd love to just ask you a little bit more about that between now and the next. Just so we're using the terms correctly too. So,
Got it.
so thanks in advance, Kim, for your help.
Yeah, making a note.
You want to add to it?
No.
Do you have anything that's accurate?
I think that was pretty accurate.
And we,
It was, yes.
yeah, Pat had put together some numbers, that I believe she shared at the last meeting, and I just kind of threw together some numbers, like, I don't know, 3 hours ago. And potentially for the 28-29 school year, if we were to combine Booth Bay, Edgecombe, Dresden, Whitefield, Southport, Wiscasset, we could potentially have between 300 and 350 high schoolers. So still not capacity. And that's just a really rough, they're probably not accurate, but it's close.
It's a start.
So you want to know numbers over the past 10 years, 9 to 12, and then what's regionalization, what's a service center, and any other things under that umbrella. For the 9 to 12 numbers, I'll break them down by town of residence, because there are other folks in town who are, and your committee was interested in that. Just, I'll just do that, it'll be interesting.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm also used to the point about sources. We're also trying to make sure we have
Right.
source data for every number. So,
Great.
thank you.
We can send around, you know, this particular sheet. I use the NCES data. I just found that to be the most resourceful out of any. And because of course, when you do a Google search, you know, AI will come up first. And so.
And it's often wrong.
Well,
These days.
I don't know, you know, because then again, you go into several things, whether it's the Department of Education for Maine or, and they
Correct.
all don't seem to quite be the same.
There's other Wiscassets, and so when you're asking about Wiscasset,
Oh,
you go,
What there are, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll say,
No, anything else?
y'all.
And if you wanna send in anything you have, and I would say, Tracy's been sending in their committee's report ahead of time, so if there is written down stuff that you wanna report, also for Beth. So Beth doesn't have to type everything, if you just wanna send it to one of us, and then we'll have it.
Thank you. Tracy?
All right, so, for our report, we met with Kim on, I believe, the 2nd of December. And, first of all, we asked, apparently there was a report done when the last school closed here in town. So we, Kim had found that report and handed that off to us, so I'm slowly working my way through that one.
It's the 2008 report.
Yeah. So I was just looking more to formulate some questions for John as far as what this looks like, what physically that would look like. From there, we also asked Kim to come up with a report for us around enrollment. So what our overall enrollment was, 9 through 12, how many were tuitioned in, what was the spending per pupil, staff and student ratios per grade, graduation rate overall, and chronic absenteeism, what that looks like. Kim did report that, from the Dresden report, they must have gotten their information from ESSA, from that dashboard, and that was not a correct report. So she did send along to us the newer numbers for all of that are correct now.
The attendance
The
numbers.
attendance
were wrong,
numbers were
yeah.
wrong. Apparently they had been, doing attendance per block, per period, not per day, so if a kid was absent that day, they were absent all 6 blocks, so they got absent 6 times a day, so that number for the state was not correct. So then we had some questions, Doug had some questions around definitions as far as, what is student and staff support, what did that mean in Kim's initial report that she gave us? So under student and staff report, that's guidance, help, curriculum coordinator, staff development, library services and technology. What was system admin, that's school board, or school committee election services, school committee legal notice. There's all kinds of stuff. Lots of definitions here, that she then gave us a full rundown, with the budget. So we have all of those definitions and the breakdowns under the budget, so we'll be able to look at that a little more closely. She also urged us to go talk to Bob Keeler over in Booth Bay, just so that we have some differences, between what is happening in Wisconsin, what's happening over in Booth Bay. And then we asked her what she felt the possibility of doing a pre-K through 8 at the high school building would be. She said, yeah, anything's possible, it just all costs money. And that we need to talk to John Berry about more specifics around that, which I think we covered some of tonight. And we'll meet with you specifically about a lot more of that, so we have some.
Sure.
Sometimes.
All right, so that's our report, that's what we focused in on.
And then just reading the rest of it, so you've got more questions that Dr. came about.
Yes. Yes.
Anybody else have? Anybody have any questions? Anything else to talk about this evening?
Meeting date? Our next meeting falls on holiday.
What day?
It falls on the 20th, which is Martin Luther King.
Follow mine. That's school vacation.
27th.
That's school vacation. No,
Not January, no.
oh, January.
All right, so January 27th.
Would the 27th work for both?
I won't.
I think there's nobody else in this room. On the 4th Monday. That's nice.
So if Duncan will be here, can he just give us
Do you
information?
want me to look at that? Or would you rather set up a tour for January and then do something different?
I mean, I think we could do both, couldn't
It's only time, Dwayne. It's only time.
You can squeeze $25 out of the day.
Yeah.
You could do tours and follow by, or is that too much?
No, planning board and OFC is 2nd and 4th. What is that? Is that
That's
the
the
4th? Okay. Okay, maybe could we do the tour that day instead?
Do you wanna tour both buildings? I mean, you should tour both buildings, you wanna tour both buildings at the same
Should
time?
be doing both.
Sure.
January 27th.
Do you wanna wait till 6 to start? Should we start earlier?
Yeah, we could go a little earlier.
Can we go earlier?
Is everybody okay with going earlier?
I won't be
What day are
going.
we talking about?
The 27th, you won't be.
No tour? You won't be here.
I won't be going.
And he won't be here, but I can take.
I don't know if it was,
Okay.
I'm all right.
5:30 work? I can get that up.
How early can you do that?
5:30.
So do you wanna start at the elementary school and then we can go over to the high school? And if we need to sit down and talk afterwards, we could sit in the library.
Let's see if we can do it.
Okay.
Buildings, so
So
5:30
27th?
That's 5:30.
at the elementary school.
On the 27th.
Yeah,
WAS and then.
So we're not gonna have
We won't have
a
a.
meeting.
A
sit down.
regular meeting.
Right, okay.
Well, we might sit down at the end of that. at the
Yeah,
high
the
school
library.
Okay.
for any
In the meantime,
questions or-
the three of us.
Right?
Yep.
That's all right.
And then February meeting is on the tenth, is that right?
No. it should be-
No. Should be the 17th.
Well, 17th is also a holiday.
Yes, it is.
So
That school vacation.
consider moving it to the tenth instead.
Yeah, we could.
Same problem with ORC and the planning board in here. Yep.
Yes, absolutely.
What about going to the third, going early since we're not. I don't think there's somebody here about first.
The time, maybe the morning.
The best time
First
is
Monday with
between
cemetery committee, we're not. meeting.
8:30 and 1. Because I drive.
To the third.
Yeah, would people be able to do February third for the next regular meeting?
Yes.
Yeah. Cause that one falls during, President's Day / school vacation in February, so February third, so we'll have back to back, but. So tour and then
So
meeting,
tour and then meeting.
awesome.
and regular time at 6 for the third.
Now, could you repeat that?
Could you please?
Okay, so we're doing tour at 5:30
For the
on the 27th of January. Meet at the elementary school.
Right,
Then on February third, regular meeting here at 6
So we don't,
for the February. meeting.
okay,
Because that one also falls on holidays and school vacation.
so we're only looking at the elementary school and not one.
No, we're doing both, but we're gonna start.
Yes.
Good. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Can I assume the public is. Then that for the school?
I assume, is that?
Yeah.
Anybody from the public, yeah.
You can
So if
have a
want
public
me to say
meeting
elementary
with the public.
Yeah.
That's why it's a policy.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, you got the time.